All right, so this is yet another episode. This is like the second time in 3 videos where my mic did not want to cooperate with me. And it's strange because I'm using the same mic now that I used to initially record this episode, and it's working fine. So I have no idea what's wrong with it, but unfortunately, this is going to be a post commentary, and this was actually a playoff episode as well. So what we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna quickly go over each game. Yeah, obviously I already know the outcome, but hopefully this doesn't happen too often. So we're here in the playoffs of year number 7 in round 1 against the Carolina Hurricanes, and we're going in with a full bill of health as Suzdalev and McAvoy came back from their injuries prior to game number 1, which was a 7-0 shutout victory for your Washington Capitals. Shots were 47-30 in favor of us. 3 stars of the game are Knight, Lambos, and Misa. So Knight is actually playing despite his subpar regular season performances. So definitely a bit of an odd decision by coach, but I guess he got the shutout here, so I'm not complaining. In the first period, Metcalf scored unassisted and was followed up with a goal by Suzdalev from McAvoy and Lambos, and then Protas with the goal before the end of the period from Galvis and Crystal puts us up 3-0 heading into the second period, where Levshunov scores twice, the first from Crystal and Misa, and the second from Huang and Deruio. And then Lambos scores from Misa and Afanasev to make it 6-0 after 2. And then the third, Misa scores from Afanasev and Lambos to make it the 7-0 victory in game number 1. And then in game number 2, you have a 4-2 Caps victory. So we go up 2-0 in the series. Shots are 35-30 in favor of us. 3 stars of the game are Crystal, Suzuki, and Protas. No scoring in the first. Second period, Crystal gets us on the board from Protas, but that was followed up by goals from Suzuki and Jarvis to put the Canes up 2-1. But then Crystal gets another before the end of the period to make it 2-2 heading into the third. And then Torpchenko scores in the third from Gauthier and McAvoy, followed up by Lynn from Crystal and LaPierre to make it the 4-2 victory. Game number 3 was a 4-1 Canes victory, with the shots being 29 apiece. 3 stars of the game are Verhoff, Goguen, and Kupari. The first period, Goguen and Nystrom score for the Canes, but then Lambo scores from Misa to make it 2-1 after 1. No scoring in the second, and then in the third, Goguen scores again, and Verhoff with the empty netter gives the Canes a 4-1 victory. Game number 4 was a 4-0 Canes shutout victory, the shots being 42-22 in their favor, and the 3 stars of the game are Verhoff, Svechnikov, and Gaucher. First period, Kupari scores for them. Second period, Kokniemi makes it 2-0, and third period, Svechnikov and Verhoff score to make it the 4-0 victory for them. And then in between games 4 and 5, we had Captain Carson try to break up a clique, but it backfired, causing even more team harmony issues at a bad time to be having such issues. Game 5 was a 1-0 Caps shutout victory, with the shots being 55-18 in our favor, and we only managed 1 goal. 3 stars of the game are Hamerla, Gaucher, and LaPierre. Crystal scored early in the first period, and that would turn out to somehow be the only goal of the game in a stellar performance from the Carolina goaltender. And then in an elimination game 6, we start out in the first with a goal from Misa, assisted by Deruio and Galvis. And then in the second period, Jarvis scores for the Canes to make it 1-1. And then the third, Aho scores to give Carolina a 2-1 lead. And then D'Angelo gets one with 1:03 remaining to give them the 3-1 victory. And we head to 7. Shots were 44-25 in favor of Carolina. 3 stars of the game are Aho, Deruio, and Jarvis. And then game 7 starts out with an early 1-0 Caps lead with a goal by Suzdalev from Huang and Levshunov, but the game is tied up later in the period with a goal from Gaucher, and that would be the only scoring in regulation as we head to overtime, where Lindstrom of Carolina scores, and we are out in the first round in a year where we had to get it done. This was such an important year, and we failed in the first round. That is by far our worst playoff performance to date. Even our first playoff performance, we got to round number 3, and then last year we got to round number 2, and now this year, unfortunately, we take another step back, getting eliminated in round number 1. Shots were 37-32 in our favor. 3 stars of the game are Chesley, Suzdalev, and Hamerla, who sported a ridiculous 960 save percentage throughout this round. And as we saw, Spencer Knight was actually the one in net for us, despite the performance by Kochetkov during the regular season. And he did well with a 938 save percentage of his own, but our offense just could not get anything past the brick wall that was Patrick Hamerla. All right, so due to this being a condensed episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what was supposed to be episode 19 into the second part of this episode. So transitioning over to the live commentary right now. And we are back with some more Washington Capitals franchise mode in FHM 10. And in this one, we have quite the busy offseason ahead of us because as we see by our cap obligations, we have 6.3 remaining in salary cap space for next season. And when we take a look at our upcoming free agents list, you got McAvoy, Protas, Higgins, Gauthier. There's no way we're affording all of them. Gauthier wants $3 million, and that's coming off of his best season so far, which is only 20 points in 63 games played. At this point, what he brings does not really justify the price anymore. Then you have James Higgins as well, coming off his rookie deal. He wants 2.3, so it's not terrible, but he only had 18 points this year in 59 games played. I'm not a big fan of his mental ratings. And when it comes to the depth chart, we just have so much depth at center. Like, we can afford to replace him if we have to. We can easily just drop Higgins and replace him with Mata or Royston or even Shilov, who's at a 2.5-star ability. He's not even signed as of right now, but he certainly will be for the start of the season. Yuri Rausa as well. I mean, we just have so many guys at center that I don't really feel the need to re-sign someone like Higgins when his mental ratings are not where I would like them to be. At this point, we have to cut expenses wherever we can. And unfortunately, Higgins falls under the category of players that just aren't really necessary. And then you have longtime veteran of this team, Alexei Protas. He's been with us the entire GM mode, but unfortunately the time has come to move on from him as he doesn't even want to renew his contract. So, you know, we may as well just let him walk to free agency. That I don't think there's any point in pursuing him, especially when we have so many guys waiting in the weeds anyway. Besides, maybe this will be a good thing. You know, maybe this team needs a little change of personnel in order to truly make some progress in the playoffs, because every year since the year that we first made the playoffs, we've just been going backwards. We had a third round exit the first year we made the playoffs, which I believe was year number 5. Then year number 6, we had a second round exit. And then this year, the first round exit. Yeah, it's not ideal. Now, Protas was far from the problem. I'm not saying he was a bad player by any means, but unfortunately, it's just not in the cards for us this year. And as for McAvoy, I mean, like I said earlier, we knew going into trading for him that we were not going to be able to re-sign him. He's asking for 8.7 here for 4 years and no movement clause. There's no way we're going to be able to afford that. So he is going to be walking as well. Now, it should still be noted that we have the rights to auto-qualify Gauthier and Higgins, so we'll be trading their rights when the time comes, but McAvoy and Protas are going to be UFAs. So that being said, let's make our way to probably the end of the playoffs, and we'll see who wins the Stanley Cup. And we have the Ottawa Senators versus the Minnesota Wild in the Stanley Cup Finals. Interesting final. And the Stanley Cup champions are the Minnesota Wild, their first Stanley Cup championship in team history. They went through Winnipeg, Chicago, Vegas, and Ottawa. So let's take a look at the league stats to wrap things up here before we get into the awards. Trevor Zegras led the league in scoring with 118 points, followed up by McDavid, Bedard, Caulfield, Quinn, Massar, and Pedersen. So 7 players with 100 points or more this season. And most goals, Jack Quinn with 57, followed up by Caulfield and Matthews. McDavid had the most assists with 73. And let's see in goal with a minimum of, let's say, 20 games played. You have Saros in 21 games played with a 927 save percentage. And then in 76 games played, Gabriel Daig with a 919 save percentage. These goaltenders are getting overworked big time. I mean, we're frequently seeing in this save file, at least, goaltenders who have games played in the mid 70s. All right, we are on June 23rd, and it appears we have a trade proposal from Chicago. Charles DeMay for Protas. I mean, Protas is leaving anyway. Let's see. Charles DeMay gets along well with everyone, never takes success for granted, doesn't let criticism get him down like his personality. I mean, he doesn't have the best attributes, but it's better than nothing. I mean, we're getting something back for a player we weren't re-signing anyway, so sure, why not? Complete trade. Charles DeMay, welcome to the Washington Capitals. And as for Alexei Protas, thank you for your time here. Hopefully it works out for you there in Chicago or wherever else you're going. I don't know. Maybe they'll re-sign him in time. Maybe they won't. Guess we'll see. So I guess let's get DeMay signed. And yeah, that the best part about him is that he's very cheap. Only wants less than $1 million. So I will certainly do that. So got some nice depth in return for a player who Once again, we weren't even re-signed in the first place. So, I mean, normally that's not the kind of offer I would do as a GM, but you know what? The computer offered, so who am I to decline? Now let's sign some of our prospects who have deadlines coming up. You have Shilov, Rendell, Kuhner, Engstrom, Dimone, and Boumediene. I think I'm going to pass on Dimone, Boumediene, and Rendell. I'll sign Shilov, Kuhner, and Engstrom though. As for other players who we're going to be signing, I will sign Stesko and Rausa as well. All right, time for the awards ceremony. For the Ted Lindsay, you have Connor McDavid. For the Art Ross, you have Trevor Zegras. For the Maurice Richard, you have Jack Quinn. For the Lady Bing, you have Brock Besser. For the Bill Masterton, you have Roman Josi. For the Mark Messier Leadership Award, you have Adam Pelech, who is still in the league at a 1.5-star ability. And for the Jennings, you have Peter Kochetkov, so there you go. We get the Jennings once again. For the heart between Zegras, McDavid, and Bedard, you have Connor McDavid. For the Conn Smythe Trophy, you have David Spacek of Minnesota with 18 points in 22 games played as a defenseman. For the Calder between Elton Hermanson, Mason St. Louis, and Louis Alex Tremblay, it is Elton Hermanson of Vegas with 60 points in 80 games played. The Norris between Cedar, Bernier, and Dobson, it is Noah Dobson of the Islanders, 67 points in 82 games played. For the Selke between Rasmussen, Toropchenko, and Gauthier, come on. Nathan Gauthier wins. So Toropchenko in the finalists for the best defensive forward of the year. And for the Vezina between Daig, Hellebuck, and Gustafson is Gabriel Daig of Calgary. Executive of the year between Pat Verbeek, Bill Ropalewski, and Bill Guerin is Bill Ropalewski of Florida. And for the Jack Adams between Chris Knobloch, Elaine Nasruddin, and Jeff Halpern is Jeff Halpern of Minnesota. And here's our season score. We reached the playoffs, had a winning season, and a win percentage of 600 or better. No negative categories, of course. Longevity bonus of 6 brings our season score to 25 and total career score to 104. And I think I'll put all those points into player management, bringing that to 12. Oh, it appears one of our coaches has retired. Kirk Muller has announced his retirement. So we're going to have to find a new offensive coach. All right, so of the coaches that are on this screen, I believe John Madden fits the bill to replace someone like Kirk Muller. There's also Travis Green, who I'm considering. 16 player management for Green, 13 motivation, 14 discipline. I'm really focusing on this category here, on the miscellaneous ratings. There's not really much difference between them, honestly. Besides the fact that Green loves prospects, that's about it. And then aggressive goalie handling. Madden is more balanced. Yeah, I like Green a little bit more just because of his player management at 16. Compared to Madden with 14. So I think I'll sign Travis Green for 4 seasons here. To be honest, I'm not even going to look at free agency because as it stands, we are not in the position to be making any kind of free agency moves whatsoever. We're currently at 91 million in salary. Now that is with 31 players on the roster, so that'll obviously go down once the preseason has ended because these are all players that have the potential to slot in as depth down here. You got DeMay, Kingerski, Lemire, Rausa, Shilov. We have so many prospects who are looking to break in here. Larange, Royston, Mata. So you see why I was okay with releasing a player like, Higgins. But my real concern here is going to be re-signing our current players, like especially Ryan Lynn. Dare I click renew contract? How much is he going to want? Okay, that's very good for him. That's very good. I would definitely do that for him. In fact, I'll just get him locked up right now before that number goes up anymore. All right, I managed to get him at 4 million for 4 years, so I'd say that's a pretty good deal for Ryan Lynn. Now, what does our Tamanov want? 5.5. Toropchenko, 2 mil. Kartai does not want to renew his contract. All right. Kochetkov, 5 mil. There's no way we're going to be able to keep Kochetkov. The only way we can afford him is if we traded Knight. It's one or the other. It's Knight or Kochetkov, not both at that point. So I think this year is definitely going to be a deciding year for the both of them, really. Oh, right. We still have York in the minors. I completely forgot about him. He's out here with the almost $4 million salary. I suppose it would help to move him out at this point. I mean, how far is he down our depth chart? He's our 12th defenseman. Yeah, I think we can afford to get him out of here at this point. I'll just shop him, see what we can get. As far as draft picks go, it looks like all we're getting back is a 5th, but you know what? That's fine. I think I'll send him to Carolina. All right, so we're going to be trading James Higgins and Cutter Gauthier to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a couple of 3rd round picks, one for this year, one for next year. So got them out of the way quickly. Didn't want to have to deal with all that, especially not with how much they were asking for. So Chicago traded for Protas only to release him. Definitely a choice. I'm not sure what the AI was thinking there. Although I guess it doesn't think in the first place. All right, with that being done, we can make our way to the draft lottery, as we are not going to be players in free agency whatsoever. All right, we're at the draft lottery, so let's go through it. Number 16 will be Dallas, 15 Florida, 14 Edmonton, 13 Vancouver. Then you have Columbus, Arizona, so Philly moves up, New Jersey, the Rangers, Tampa, San Jose, Seattle, St. Louis, Boston, Pittsburgh, and LA at number 1. Philly picks at 2. Oh boy, I'm looking at the draft here and ooh. I do not like the look of this. Yeah, this is, oh dear. You don't like to see it. That is an ugly draft. This draft might be even shorter than last year's draft. I'm not even sure if we're going to make a pick here in this draft. This is looking sad. This is pretty sad here. And besides that, we don't even have a first round pick. So yeah, this is not looking like a draft where we're going to be making a pick here. We're up to pick 55 and there is 1 2-star potential left. Vitaly Tregubov, a goaltender. Then you have Lepchenko, Dyke, Sindelar. I would say, if anyone, Gabriel Routier would be my pick. He's got some decent ratings offensively and physically. Mentally, he's not really there. Defensively is okay, but he's certainly better than most of the other options here. So Gabriel Routier, welcome to the Washington Capitals. The rest of these guys just are not up to par. Like, they would be huge projects. Skip ahead here and have the CPU finish the draft for a second year in a row. Yeah, that's the problem I've noticed lately with FHM, is that when you get into the later years, like once you start getting into the computer generated drafts only, you get some really, really bad depth in the draft. But yeah, they need to address that. They need to make the draft more viable in later years. So with that, one thing's off here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.